if we can ask the people out in the foyer to either move along or be quiet, because sometimes the background noise makes it hard. And we'll get our staff back in the room and then we'll call the meeting to order. Okay, we have everybody back in the room, so it is 6:49 and we will call this council meeting to order. Please rise for the singing of the national anthem. So we'll move forward with the adoption of the agenda with one minor change. We're looking to put the in-camera meeting, part of the meeting, to the end, as we have guests visiting us tonight. So if no one has a problem with moving number 5 to after announcements at the end. See nothing. So we'll move, coming from Deputy Mayor Fody, seconded by Councillor Maybe, that the agenda be adopted as circulated. Any comments or questions? Go ahead. Okay. Okay, all those in favor, all those opposed, it's carried. Next item is the consent agenda. Sorry, declaration. I got ahead of myself here. Flipping my page. So declaration of interest, pecuniary interest or general nature thereof. If anybody has an interest to declare, go ahead, Councillor Maybe, and then Councillor Jameson. So 11-6 is. Okay. Private road, okay. 11-5. Yeah, 11-5. That's right. So you will leave the room at that point in time. And then Councillor Jameson?
I believe I've got it right, 11-6, which is a private road.
Yeah.
And I did try to, I think I posted it for the clerk's information, if I got that right. I didn't get it right. Okay, talk.
We'll get the form filled out. So we have Brian, Councillor Maybe stepping up for 11.5 and Councillor Jameson for 11.6. Any other interests need to be declared? I have no other hands up. So then we'll move forward past the in-camera portion and we'll come back to that in the end to number 7, which is the consent agenda. And that will be the adoption and receipt of minutes. Motion comes forward from Councillor Maybe, seconded by Deputy Mayor Fode, that the June 17th, 2024 public meeting minutes be adopted as circulated, and that the June 17th, 2024 council meeting minutes and June 17th, 2024 and July 2nd, 2024 committee of the whole meeting minutes be adopted as circulated, and that the May 28th committee of adjustment meeting minutes be received and filed. Discussion on these minutes. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you. The only thing that I found is in 8.1, the public meeting minutes. The title was not clear to actually what meeting it was. You could see meeting, but you couldn't see that it was a public meeting on the documentation.
So clerical rewrite there. Any other errors or omissions? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? Oh, and I have been remiss in letting everyone know online that Councillor Lackey was unable to join us and sent his regrets for this evening. So there was 6. Moving along to staff reports, number 9, moving is Councillor Jameson, seconded by Deputy Mayor Fode, that the council approve the staff reports as recommended at the July 2nd, 2024 committee of the whole meetings. So there's a number of staff reports there. If anybody wants to make a comment, go ahead, Councillor Garrell. And if we need to do anything with it, we'll separate it out.
It's really just a quick question, if I
Okay,
may,
go ahead.
regarding the landing craft in 9.3. I was just curious how the who's doing the servicing on this? Is that something we put out to contract?
Go ahead, Mr. Chief.
Through your worship, the warranty work will be done by the provider of the craft, or a dealer of the Bayview Boat Works. And then after that, we'll take it in-house or take it to a neighboring area to have it done.
Any other questions in regards to the staff reports? I have no hands up, so I will call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? And it's carried. Next items are the information items. Number 10, moved by Councillor Jameson, seconded by Deputy Mayor Fode, that the information items be received and filed. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4 items there. Are there any comments? Go ahead, Councillor Maybe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you. The particular one, 10.1, where it talked about the no mow May. And I have to agree. I know we talked about that when that happened the first year or after the first year, and how much it costs to catch up on that. And in this case, it all pertained to the parks, and they weren't able to use them as readily as they like to. And I'd like to see us look at that particular process that we do, and perhaps give it some valued. Is it worth it? Because we live in a rural area where we have plenty of grasses and everything for that. So
Well, I'll ask the CAO to address that.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. The survey was done in April, and I think there was some concern amongst the respondents about no mow May. We had discontinued doing no mow May after, I think, the first year, where we received a lot of feedback about the parks in particular. So the parks were cut as on the normal schedule throughout May. So they were safe for people to use.
Well, and just to add on to that, they weren't cut as often as we would like because we did not have any university or college students who applied. So let this be fair warning to all of you who sit around this table and those who may be listening in on this. If you have a college or university student who wants a summer job, we would be happy to receive your application. The application process, I believe, was started in February, and we were still searching for applicants to work in the summer, well into May, I think. So it is astounding to me that we struggle to find kids who want to work in this area in a Monday to Friday situation, and off at 1 on Fridays, weekends off. So this is my plug to work for the township next year. Please, if you have high school or university, college age children, please have them put their application in. So, yes, anyway. Any other comments in regard? Go ahead, Councillor Kelman, and then Councillor Garrell.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. 10.3, the AMO Homeless Encampments in Ontario report. I just wanted to draw attention to the fact that there might be a tendency to feel like this doesn't apply to us because we don't have visible encampments, but that does not mean that we don't have a homelessness problem in our township. It's almost an even bigger problem in rural areas because it can be very invisible. So I think it's important to read this report carefully. The suggestions made on page 13 of the report, particularly numbers 3 and 4, are something we can take into consideration. And I do think across the province and probably the country, this is going to get worse before it gets better for municipalities. So the time to start making a plan is yesterday, but as soon as we can. And we need to make a plan unique to the area that we live in, because there is something that we as a municipality, even though this is a provincial and federal problem, there are things that we as a municipality can look to do to help these people, because it's not just wealthy people that deserve to live in this township.
Thank you, Councillor Kalman. Councillor Grau, go ahead.
Thank you, and through your worship, regarding 10.1 and the communications survey. On the last entry there, it's, I guess, question 13, and this would be the first response. I read that, and for a very long time, I've had this feeling that we have tried to get good communication. We have implemented, report a problem, make a complaint, and so on. But each time we do that, I have this sinking feeling that we're distancing ourselves more and more, and therefore the communication is not getting out there. It's sort of this reversal of, okay, everyone's shielded from the public with these inputs, but the public is definitely not getting the feedback back. I hear that often. And I do appreciate there's some real problem areas when people are just angry and so on. But I just wonder, are we doing a good enough job on really responding in person, by phone or whatever, to the public? Or have we unwittingly put up too many barriers, and it's all computer driven and no one ever gets back to anybody, and it just generates, number one there, not getting emails back and so on. I'm just curious, and my question would then be, does staff have a mechanism to make sure that the intent is happening? The intent of the better communication. And I think that's a very fair question. Thanks.
Thank you, Worship, and through you, I think it's a fair question. The feedback that we were getting when people were leaving voicemails that were never getting actioned or returned or what have you. When somebody goes through and does the actual reported function, it generates a ticket in our system. And that gets looked at by somebody, depending on what it is. It could be the grass is too long at, so that generates a ticket that requires action. And I can go onto my desktop and I can see what's open and who's doing what and what their response times are. Maybe the last link, depending on the type of problem reported or the feedback we receive, the last link is the following up with the person who reports. Often there is a concern if there is a report that, my neighbor isn't cutting their lawn. For lots of reasons, we cannot go back and say what action we've taken with this person. And sometimes this initiates a whole enforcement issue that takes a long period of time. So people say, well, I reported it and I'm not getting any answers. Well, that's fair, because we can't give you answers. If I call the township and complain about you, you're a neighbor, Brock's lawn is too long. And no, it's not. Your property's lovely. But can I now follow up and understand, what has the township done? What's Brock going to do about his lawn? Why, you have a right to privacy just like anybody else. And so we have to be careful. And these are usually the ones that generate the, why am I not getting feedback from the township? Well, that's because we have to protect the privacy of the people concerned. So, you know, when it's, I've seen tickets with Aaron, who's here in attendance. I've seen where there is entries that Aaron has called the property owner about, you know, a condition of a pothole or something, and they've worked it out and the owner now knows. Those are the ones you never hear about. When somebody's happy, you never hear it. And when somebody isn't getting the information that they feel like they're entitled to, whether rightly or wrongly, that's the stuff that you see on Facebook and all that sort of stuff. So I think we all have to be mindful that, yes, where there is information that where we can circle the wagon and provide that closing call with the person where it's appropriate, that's fine. But maybe up front, we need to, and we have these conversations with people time and time again, we cannot tell you what's going on with your neighbor's property because they're entitled to privacy.
The other thing that for the public's consumption as well as council is that every voicemail that is left here is documented and saved and emailed to the individual. So if you left a message for Dave, he not only gets it on his phone, but he gets it in his email. Is that correct? Okay. Same with Aaron, same with Mel, same all. So if people have made legitimate calls and they are not getting a call back, then I would highly recommend that they speak to the CIO if that's the case. Because I think that there's times where things fall through the cracks, but if it's documented and they left a message, it's documented. And if nobody gave them a call back, that shame on us.
Thank you. I think that generally answers it. And again, it wasn't a criticism. It was just, I don't think we on council have a daily record of what's come and gone, but the CAO has rightly pointed out that there is documentation and staff does have follow-up on those things. And I think that's important for the public to hear. So really it addresses my point. And I thank you for that.
So any other questions or comments in regards to information items? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? And it's carried. Moving on to action required items. The next motion is Councillor Maybe, seconded by Councillor Jameson, that the council approve the title change of the Communications and Community Services Assistant to the Recreation and Facilities Coordinator. Discussion on the motion. Oh, okay. Sorry, that I can push that back to after the in-camera meeting, correct?
Yeah.
You want me to rescind it?
No, we just need a motion to.
Okay, so I need a motion to move this motion. So this needs to be done after our discussion in camera. My apologies, because we moved the in-camera discussion. So Councillor Kelman and then Councillor Maybe to move item number 11.1, move to after in-camera discussion. Discussion on the motion. All those in favor? All those opposed? It's carried. Thank you for letting us move that. So I will move on to 11.2, Gilmore request to use road allowance, and the motion comes forward from Councillor Maybe, seconded by Councillor Jameson, that council approve the title change, or sorry. It comes forward from Deputy Mayor Fody, seconded by Councillor Jameson, that the council approve the bylaw attached as Exhibit A to Planning and Development 2024-054 to authorize the use of the township's road allowance between concession 1 and 2, lot 10, located south of the property municipally addressed as 418 County Road 32 and west of the property addressed as 260 County Road 32, and to permit improvements to said road allowance to access the property identified by roll number 08-12-812-010-01200, subject to no public objections being received by July 17th, 2024, and that the applicants will be responsible for the construction cost and maintenance of the access road where it is located on the unopened road allowance, and that the applicants enter into an agreement with the township to regulate the use of the portion of the unopened road allowance subject to said application in a form satisfactory to township legal counsel, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the agreement. So it is council this evening. However, we do have some individuals in the gallery that would like to speak to this. So as chair, I will allow those comments this evening. But first, I'm going to open up to council members for comments or questions in regards to this application. Go ahead, Councillor Mady.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you. I guess one of my questions is, this is to access the lot, one to resell or to put a new house on?
I'm going to ask the planner to, can you put the map up on the screen so that everyone is looking at the same thing? So that we know exactly what we're discussing here? And also the people who may be watching at home. Is there a way to make that bigger? The scale at the bottom, yeah. There we go. Okay. So it's the yellow piece that is in question, correct, Madam Planner?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Just so everybody's clear and we're on the same page.
Yes, and the blue stripe that's here is a road allowance already that isn't being used presently because the house that is already present is not using that road allowance, correct?
Madam Planner?
Through you, it's staff's understanding that the area represented in blue on the screen is a private right-of-way that was established back in 1993. However, access to the subject property is prevented because the access has not yet been permitted over the unopened road allowance. Hence the application before council this evening.
Yeah, as a follow-up, the red line then is the road allowance that was geographically done years and years ago. So it's the area of transverse, right?
It's currently not being used.
Yep, not used. It's just there. Yes. So my question is the property being resold and a housing put on it? I guess, do we know that?
Madam Planner?
Through your worship, it's staff's understanding that it's the intent of the current property owner to sell the property. The property currently has rural zoning on it that permits a number of standard rural uses. And those are listed in Exhibit B, I believe, to the report,
Okay, thank you.
including residential.
Any other comments or questions from council members in regards to this? Okay, so if there's any questions from the gallery, please come forward. Go ahead, Ms. Green, come ahead. Thank you.
My name is Chris Manga Green, 210, 230 Highway 32, Gananoque. And very familiar with this area as company 1425608 owns the former CN Rail line from Highway 32 to Highway 401, adjacent to this registered right-of-way, which is the designated blue on your photograph, I believe. And I think the former rail line is the yellow. And as I say, we purchased it in 2003. I have a few issues with the application. 1425608 put a application to have the road allowance closed 2 years ago. And in speaking with Carl Eel of the planning department, I guess through an oversight or miscommunication, he said, or no communication, that has not moved forward. There was discussions and planners, council members did come and walk it to see exactly what was going on. and where it was actually located. It's a pretty remote area. So for the very reason that this application was questioned initially, was that an unopened road allowance could not be used for private use. And so I am rather shocked and appalled that an application would be allowed to use an unopened road allowance for private use. Given one, I don't know if there's a cost involved to buy it, whereas our application, we were told we would have to buy it. Cited a number of other reasons as to why the questions were there with regard to that application. So through that conversation today, and I guess I think I'm privy to say that Carl's conversation with senior planners, there has not been a period of time for us to give feedback, neighbors, and I come to know another neighbor, and unaware to give time to digest this application as neighbors and people of interest with their own properties. So I have an issue with the application process and the application itself, given what my application or our application is dealing with. You spoke in your information about encampments in the township, and I have not made it known to the township, but I have been dealing with encampment at the Gananoque waterfront all along this area. So to open up further is of concern. And again, a big problem. I also have a problem with the transportation impact. Should this be opened up to maybe not just residential, but whatever? It is a rural area. We've all known that the farmers in this area and a lot of tractors on the road. And the Highway 32 is an accident waiting to happen. As a business owner, a homeowner with businesses all around, a double line, a curve, Station Road, and now another entrance. And I know Councillor Fode's wife works across the road, near misses all the time. My daughter herself was in an accident turning left into 230 Highway 32. I've asked for speed control. That's not happened. We can't even get the county to mow the grass. So I think that we need time as neighbors. First, the letter that we received was dated July 2nd. Today is July 8th. So we haven't had a lot of time to provide feedback to the planners. Some haven't even seen it. Some other issues, I don't know if we should take your time, but in dealing with Kyle today, there was a lot of planning issues such that he was not aware of, such as the access for 1425608 off of 32 does have a civic address. He wasn't aware of that. I'm not sure if the senior planner is. We don't know if there's a requirement between roads adjacent to one another. I think in the application, one says 20 feet, one says 20 meters. So I think that time is what we're asking for, so that in the best interest of everyone and neighbors, and I know the neighbor at shares this right away, a registered right away, which was established because when the property was divided from the former Pike property, they knew it was landlocked, and that was the solution then. We've all dealt with the unopened road allowance and the problems thereof. And for the township to set a precedent that you can extend it for private use. I think it's a very dangerous precedent-setting situation where people will snip fences and say, if you can give it to one person, you're going to give it to many. So that's not all of my concerns, but I'm asking for time, give input before it does go forward. Thank you.
Any further comments from the public in regards to this? Please come forward.
My name is Alex Lawson, and I'm the owner of 418 County Road 32. So where this right of way goes through. First off, I would like to just echo all of the other things that were said. I think they are very valid concerns. The things that come to mind for me most, I feel that I've got just some questions to ask. I think the timelines was a thing for me as well. From what I could tell, I received the mail this past Friday. So I've only had really the weekend to look at things. And then in receiving the piece of mail that I had did say 20 feet was the distance of the right of way. So the only way that I was able to find out that it was actually 20 meters was when I got the documentation that was online today. So that was available, I guess. I found out, I was calling Kyle today as well. And so I found out about that maybe 11 a.m. this morning, that it's 20 meters, which, you know, I see that, but the oversight, like just the timelines and then the fact of the 20 feet does kind of give very short timelines. I guess the biggest thing that comes to mind first, and the question that I have from that is, have things like this been approved by the township in the past where private use can be given across a unopened roadway? Because I agree that it would be a precedent. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that stands out to me. And I don't know.
Mr. Holliday, do you want to speak to this? Because I know that we've dealt with this recently on a number of issues.
I can, sure. We had an extension of Beaver Road that was similar to this, where the end of the open road allowance, you know, was at the last property, and then people wanting to build a house further down the unopened road allowance. We did a license agreement with them. Similarly, at the end of the Rose Bay Road, we have the Jeff Kelso's property, and we had an unopened road allowance that ran through his property that we had an agreement on as well. So yes, we have done this previously in the past.
And this is something that has been done even before these most recent ones. Yeah.
Okay. So like we're talking, like these kinds of things have been happening for like years then, or like it's a months kind of thing, or it's always been going on, or?
Madam Planner?
Through your worship, so the township official plan sets out the possibility of the township and council approving the use of unopened road allowances, subject to meeting a number of criteria, such as it being necessary for the use of the property. Other options have been exhausted, that all work will be done at the owner's expense. The survey is properly completed. Adjacent landowners are notified. And that the applicant's responsible for maintenance of the road to the satisfaction of the township. And so the possibility is set out through our township official plan. And it's addressed through the staff report and the recommendation before council this evening.
Thank you.
Okay. That gives more clarity on that aspect. Another thing that I guess comes to mind for me is I know a lot of townships are trying to get out of more shared laneways. I understand that this one is otherwise landlocked, but there are a lot of concerns with shared laneways and the problems they lead to in the future of snow removal or safety or upkeep or any one of those kinds of things. So I guess I just wanted to know, in a similar way, is the township often currently approving shared laneways, or is that something that's often not approved?
So I know that all of our private lanes, many of them going to waterfront, have road associations, and that's how I know I live on one, Councillor Jameson lives on one, where each member of the group that lives on that particular shared driveway shares the cost.
Yeah.
Now, in this particular instance, there would be two, so it would be a short meeting of the
Mhm.
association. But as far as what the township does regarding promoting, I wouldn't say we promote them, we accept them, and there's private road grants for both capital and maintenance that we have funding for associations who require bringing things up to standards for emergency services and egress that way.
Okay. Okay, those were my main concerns. Another thing that I guess comes to mind is, and I didn't have a chance to look into documentation to try and figure this out, but are there any concerns with setbacks to do with shared laneways? Because it does seem my house is extremely close to this, and I know obviously there's setbacks from any kind of public roads or anything like that, but it just came to mind that that might be something of concern, obviously not in the area where the proposal is, but this is going to allow for more traffic. So I just didn't know if that was something that's a consideration.
Madam Planner, do you have setbacks?
Through your worship, there is a minimum setback of 10 meters from a private right-of-way in the township zoning bylaw. But the subject property is quite large, and staff don't have a concern with the ability for a dwelling, accessory building and septic system to be sited on the property in a manner that's compliant with the minimum zoning regulations.
And when, I guess my question would be, when this house was built, was that private lane there? And if it was in the report, I apologize. The property the existing home that is built, was the right of way already there? Was it deemed afterwards? Do we know?
Through your worship, I suspect that possibly we're dealing with a legal non-complying situation where when the dwelling was developed on the property, the minimum setback of 10 meters was not in place, and so it's not applicable to the dwelling. It's permitted to continue to exist in its current location.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay. So those are the concerns that I had then.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
All right. Thank you.
Can I take other questions first, please? So the other couple in the back, any questions? If you'd like to come forward, and I believe you're the applicant, so we have you answer all the questions at the end.
I'm Beverly Lawson, and I'm Alex's mom. Currently, we're renting Alex's home as he's a teacher who lives elsewhere. But my concern is safety on a shared road. Previously, we lived on a shared road laneway and suffered a catastrophic fire for our house. During that process, of course, there had prior to that many disagreements and several people not paying their share of the road. So the roads were in poor shape, despite the fact that the average price on the road was probably many hundreds of thousands of dollars. So the night of the fire, the water truck servicing the tank went off the edge of the road, and of course then we lost the entire house. The house can be repaired, but realistically the road, despite having a number of affluent people, could not be maintained to the point that it could have easily been an ambulance, and we might have lost a life, which would have been ever so much serious. So I honestly thought and was surprised to see that shared laneways were allowed. My understanding was that they, due to safety in issues and the predominance of the boards of shame at the top of the shared roads, that they were trying to get rid of them because of the discord and then the inadequate payment for safe circumstances. So I certainly hope we don't get involved in that, but we'll see how it goes step by step and do our best. Thank you.
Thank you. So any other questions from counselors before I ask the applicant to, oh, sorry, my apologies, Ms. Green?
So I know I made comments. The question is, I think we were indicated that due to the number of neighbors and neighbors that have not seen the application, that it was a planning recommendation to give time to this before passing the motion. Is that on the table?
So we're going to hear from the applicants and it'll be up for council to make that
Okay, thank
decision.
you. And then just on another issue of concern, we spoke, and again, being in the neighborhood for all my life, the neighbor that just spoke, Alex, as we know, it's a low-lying area. And we spoke of how that road, the right-of-way, does come under water, particularly in the spring of the year, as does his house and all the water, all the land north of that and west along the Gann River. So to upgrade that to what other than a farmer's right of way might be of huge issue, obviously to the applicant, but also runoff into aquifer of the existing home that already is in that. And I do sit on a source protection committee with conservation. And it's my understanding that permits are not even going to be given to new homes where there is a floodplain. So I don't know about roads, but might be something else that planning needs to consider. Thank you for your time.
Okay, so we only have so much time. I'll allow it very quickly if you could make your point, please, because I need to let the applicant speak.
Yep. So just to speak to that, to give a little more detail, it kind of reminded me with the aquifer thing that you guys were talking about earlier. But so what I've noticed in that area is that where the laneway is, there's not a lot of gravel currently. It's wet through the entire spring. My well overflows for at least a month in the spring. The well is very close to that area. And the only thing that survives in that whole entire area is dogwood, because for, I would say probably a month or 2 months, within 5 feet of where the road currently is where the dogwoods start, and that whole area you can tell like it's black muck kind of on the bottom, and it's about that deep through an area that's the east-west section is at least like 100 feet or something like that, maybe more. And yeah, very, very large area. I can't get in there in the spring. Like I just can't walk in because there's so much water coming up in that area. I know that the prior owner told me that he needed to, or Hydro needed to get in there one spring in the past. And by Hydro needing to use that, they completely demolished the right of way, just getting their trucks in. And Hydro had to come in and lay gravel for all the damage that they had done to that right of way for going in the one time. So.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to hear from the applicant.
Stacy and Debbie Gilmore, 260 County Road 32, we're the applicants.
Thank you, Mayor.
Your worship. So the purpose for the request for the addressing is simple, so that we can sell the land as is in its rural state. It's probably some of the most beautiful 50 acres that I've ever not seen in my entire life. We bought this property almost 2 years ago, and when we were shown the property and taken for a beautiful drive, we got to see how beautiful our land was. And it was told to us at the time when we bought the property that there was a railroad and that we could not stay there, but we could just cross it. And we had a legal right of way to just cross over it. And we thought that's wonderful. We could buy a little ATV or a mini bike or side by side and go out and explore our land. We also saw that the protected lands, there was some trails in there, and there was obviously, because it's floodplain, you don't do any more than that because that's good for the coyotes and the ducks and the geese. But about 12 or 13 acres is farmed by Mr. Foreman currently, and he farms our other 27 acres now. And he brings his massive machinery in on that road. And this spring,
Every spring.
the owners brought in a trailer that was huge, and they brought it in the spring where it was all
Muddy,
as 418 mentioned.
as 14 mentioned.
And they got it stuck because the vehicle they brought in,
But they also brought it in.
and they
I-
left it there, so.
I have to have one person speak at a
Yeah,
time.
allow me.
So just
I'll
because
continue.
the people watching at home need to hear the microphone.
Okay.
Thank you.
So anyways, they stuck it. Mr. Foreman came and notified us. Oh, I don't think we're going to be able to get our trucks in. I went over, talked to them. And I said, why don't we get Charlie to bring in his machinery and help you move this thing out of the way so he can bring in his equipment so he can farm it. So there's lots of room there, folks. If you know anything about Mr. Foreman, his equipment, each one of these pieces of equipment is the size of this room, basically. And he gets them in. So all we're trying to do is take this landlock, and the way I referenced when we saw the land, and the previous owner took us on his side by side, there was no landlock. We were able to access both sides of our land. We closed the property, and I went for a drive with my tractor to cut the land there because I know it needed maintenance. And lo and behold, I show up, and Miss Green and her family or her business had erected 2 fences,
8-foot fence.
8-foot fences, landlocking, and then built a DP trench, which means you cannot go through this area, fully landlocking it. So now I've bought this beautiful piece of land that I can no longer use. I decided to offer her my land, and she wanted to steal it for a ridiculously low sum, something that would be equivalent to what you might have paid for this land 20 years ago. I said, Christine, come on, be realistic. I don't need the land. I'm happy to sell it to you for what would be, and no. She just wants to steal the land. She fully landlocked it. It's now a useless piece of land, the most beautiful 50 acres in Gananoque. If you see it and walk in there, you'll go, oh my God, I could build the most stunning little home, farmland, or whatever. This is all, folks, we are trying to do. Due to the financial circumstances of our country, this past year has been financially devastating to my family. We're at the point of we're going to lose our home. Okay? And people are complaining about a road, a dirt. Put some gravel, folks. Come on. We're going to lose our house. We're going to lose our home. All we want to do is sell this land for its current market value so someone can build a little home or a little farm for themselves, continue the community, and we can stay in our home and watch our grandson grow old. Okay? Right now, folks, that's all we're trying to do is sell this little beautiful piece of rural land so someone can build a little home and they can live there happily ever after. That's all we're trying to do for fair market value, folks.
We're not trying to change the plains. We're not trying to get rid of the forestry or the
Nothing.
beautiful floodplains or the riverfront. It's
Changing
all
nothing,
staying intact.
folks.
We're not planning on changing the zoning at all. We just want to sell it for what it is zoned for so that we can pay off our mortgage and
And
stay
live.
in our home. And people are preventing us from doing that for a road.
For gravel.
We can't even get onto our lot, to our land at all.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you just to please compose yourself.
Sorry, I'm very upset by all of this. It's been a very trying year for us. This was our last hope.
Last hope, folks. That's why we're here today.
Well, not all hope is lost. We're just trying to follow the process at this point.
So what I was really
Thank
asking,
you.
and was it Kyle who said to me, he says, unfortunately, you folks do not sit during August, so then it's going to be postponed for another 2 or possibly 3 months. We can't afford that wait. Is it possible we can have this somehow looked at within the next month or 45 days so that we can at least maybe have a hope of not losing our home?
So the motion is on the floor to make a decision this evening. However, in light of the comments that have been made that neighbors have only been notified in the more recent past, there is a compromise that we can make. So it could be considered by council that we defer this matter to have a special meeting before the end of July, because currently, as of right now, it's subject to no public objections being received by July 17th, 2024. However, it would be up to council to pick a date that would work, because technically we don't have anything scheduled for August. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Fody.
Excuse me. Thank you, Your Worship. Through you. I agree with you, Your Worship. There should be a special meeting in this case. I'd like to see it on site. This is the summer months. I think we'd have a much better perspective. Apparently, it's not far off the road.
It's easy to get to.
Very,
and I
yeah.
can cut the grass.
So we won't be holding a council meeting on site. We can definitely offer the ability to go and see the site, and we
Absolutely.
can have that done for the rest of council, but we'll have to, due to all of the technology required, so we won't.
No, sorry, you misunderstood. No, I didn't mean to have the council meeting on site. I think we should have those who can attend from staff and council to go on site and see it firsthand, because I think we're throwing a dart at a dartboard, and anybody that's seen a dartboard, there's a lot of holes around the board. So I think to get a real clear picture, we need to see it, and then at a council meeting, make a decision.
Okay, so the motion's currently on the floor. It would need to be deferred to a later date. And the date to be determined prior to the end of this meeting, because we have to put it on the calendar as per our procedure bylaw. So essentially, I have to entertain a deferral and then a future motion prior to the end of the meeting for setting a date. Correct. Okay. So Councillor Garrell, go ahead.
Would that future meeting require a joint committee of the whole and council again? We've done that.
Mhm.
Okay.
Through you, Your Worship, that's correct. If council would like to not have that on the same evening, that is an option as well. But it is the will of council with
I think
when
that
the
we'll
meeting is
probably-
done.
For the sake of ease, it would make sense because we've also had time to consider it with the public input. So, so if somebody would like to entertain a deferral, then we can set a second meeting. So, Councillor Fody and then, or Deputy Mayor Fody and then Councillor James, or maybe, my apologies, to defer this motion to a later date. And then we will work together as the council to figure out a time, be prior to the end of July. That works? Okay. So the motion is on the,
Madam Mayor, I apologize for interrupting. If I may just add something. It is my understanding that there was only 2 adjacent homes that needed to be notified, 2 properties that needed to be notified against this property, and both of them are in attendance tonight.
so there'll be.
So there is no other people that we are waiting to hear from.
So-
And I would also like to invite the council members on their own schedule to please come and view the property. I will be more than happy to take them through. There is a beautiful walkway that we walk when you go through
Look and show
the
them.
418 that you walk around. That's all mowed and maintained by us, that
About
we
500.
go in there and
About a
we
half a
maintain it.
kilometer.
And I would love to entertain and show you all what beautiful land is going to waste.
So what we will do is we will allow, if this motion to defer goes forward, it just allows the adjacent landowners to formalize their thoughts and further research what their concerns are. And that way we have the full picture prior to making a decision.
Thank you.
So the motion is on the table to defer to a later date prior to the end of July. Go ahead, Councillor Grella, comment in regards to the deferral.
Just actually, may I make a question before we get to the
Sure.
deferral? This property is you'd like to sell the property. Do you mind if my brain wasn't working? You want to sell the property. What's to prevent the next owner from dealing with the road issue?
Because it's currently has zoning on it and we are not selling it changing zoning. We are selling it as the rural zoning that's already there in
It's
place.
landlocked without this
It's
piece.
the
I
land.
It's
appreciate the
landlocked
landlocked. So,
without that.
so the real problem is you don't feel you can sell a landlocked piece of land.
We can't sell it.
Can't
You,
sell it.
did you buy it landlocked?
We
We
did
have
not,
access to it through our own property, which subsequently
is now
was
gone
removed from us by Mr.
by Miss Green.
So that is.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think this is part of the reason why this needs to be much more open and transparent as far as the discussion is concerned, so that we can answer the question that Counselor Gorell, a question like what has just been asked by Counselor Gorell, rather than to put this through in a hastily way. So the motion is to defer to a later date prior to the end of July. All those in favor of deferring? All those opposed? And it's carried. So the deferral is carried, and prior to the end of the meeting, we will pick a date and time that works for all members of council. Okay,
Thank you, kind. Thank you.
Mayor.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, does anybody need a refreshment break at this point? Yes, okay, we're gonna take a 5-minute recess, actually, 7 minutes. So we'll come back at 7:50, please and thank you. convene. We are going to reconvene this council meeting and we'll move on to 11.3 CCTV and video surveillance policy. Yep.
Heritage Celebration Grant. Lenders.
What?
Yeah.
So the Gilmore request was 11.2. 11.3 is CCTV. Sorry, whatever. Oh, I do. The motion's correct, but my agenda's not. There's no. Okay, the next motion is moved by Councillor Kelman, second by Councillor Garrell, that council approve the Heritage Celebration Grant attached to Planning and Development 2024-052 as Exhibit A for the property municipally known at 436 Linters Road in the amount of up to $2,500 in accordance with the township's Heritage Conservation and Celebration Grant policy. Discussion on the motion. Go ahead, Councillor Maybe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And the only question I had is, again, the roof is going to metal, which is nice. I have that on my own house. But my big question there is removing of the shingles. Shingles are known to be a toxic waste and dump. And so I'm just wondering if in that process, not that it's really up to us, but it would be nice to see the shingles removed because of the toxic waste.
Okay. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? It's carried. Next item, CCTV. Yep. Motion comes forward from Councillor Grell, seconded by Councillor Kelman, that council grant 3 readings of final passage to bylaw number 24-035, being a bylaw to establish a CCTV and video surveillance policy in the Township of Leeds and Thousand Islands attached corporate services report 2024-022. Motion is on the floor. We have our tech guru here. If anybody has any questions in regards to this policy. Go ahead, Councillor Maybe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My one question was, do we have body cams on anybody?
Go ahead.
Through your worship, no, we do not have any body cams placed on anybody's person at this time.
Okay. Any further comments or questions?
Just as a follow-up, will this cover if a body cam did become used?
The intent of this policy was to cover cameras that are fixed in a vehicle or fixed on a building. A separate body cam policy is something we would consider down that road.
Okay, awesome. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? It's carried. Next item is Drainage Superintendent, moved by Councillor Garrell, seconded by Councillor Kelman, that whereas Section 93 of the Drainage Act, RSO 1990 CD 17, provides that the council of a local municipality may by bylaw appoint a drainage superintendent. And whereas Section 4 of the Tile Drainage Act, RSO 1990 CT 8, provides that council of a municipality borrowing money under the Tile Drainage Act shall employ an inspector of drainage who shall inspect the drainage work and file with the clerk an inspection and completion certification. Now, therefore, be it resolved, council appoint Aaron Hatton as drainage superintendent. Discussion on this motion. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. Well, first off, congratulations, Aaron, for having attained the certification to fill a void that came upon us with James Tuck's retirement. So congratulations to both, I should say. I guess the first thing I think of when I look at this, what does this do, Aaron, or should I ask Dave, about your requirements now? Does this thin you out to a point where we need to look, I don't know, I'll just leave it at that. What does this do to your current job requirements?
I can take that one. So with this, the majority of the work is actually completed by the consultants. You know, right now we're going through the process of updating all of our municipal drain reports. So it's actually a good time for, you know, a fresh set of eyes to come in, as now we're going to have the playbook laid out in front of us of what the requirements are. We'll have a fresh set of eyes taking a look at it and going, okay, now I understand this as we're developing it, and I'm able to talk to the consultants and then carry that forward. The role of the drainage superintendent during this time, you know, we'll be hosting public meetings and we'll be taking that information in, and then, you know, the reports will be coming to council, and from there, you know, any required work then it will be up to Aaron to oversee that. So I think it's the timing of it, the way things are rolling right now. The first set of reports will be coming to council in September, and it will carry through the fall into the spring. So it's, you know, a quieter time for, you know, for works and those types of things. Obviously, the guys will be snow plowing and all that type of stuff. But for the most part, we're planning and we're getting ready. So it makes sense to be reviewing it at that time and moving forward.
Okay. Any further comments or questions in regards to the appointment? I see none. All in favor? All opposed? Congratulations, Mr. Hatton. You get to wear the illustrious label of drainage superintendent. We appreciate your efforts. Comes with a sash, yes. Drainage superintendent. Okay, now going forward with 11.5, which is moved by Councillor Kelman, seconded by Councillor Garrell. So I'll have Mr. Maybe leave. Okay, so Mr. Maybe has left the room. Moved by Councillor Kelman, seconded by Councillor Garrell, that council authorize staff to proceed with an exchange of land of 231 Daria Road to construct a cul-de-sac turnaround for operational purposes. Discussion on this motion. I think it's fairly self-explanatory, but the director is here to make any comments if anybody needs clarity. Nobody's sticking up their hand, so I'm calling it. All those in favor? All those opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Mr. Maybe you can come forward back if you can hear me. Save everybody getting up.
Mark was gonna tag him.
Oh, right. So the next motion that's coming up is Mark Jameson has declared conflict and is leaving the room. Motion comes forward from Councillor Kelman, seconded by Councillor Garrell, that council approve the distribution of $30,869.04 in private road grants, capital stream, as recommended in the allocation table attached to operations and infrastructure 2024-022. Discussion on the motion. Okay, all those in all those in favor? All those opposed? Carried. You can come back, Mr. Jameson. And the next motion that is going to be put on is, I believe, Councillor or Deputy Mayor Fody, you have something you want me to put it on the floor? Okay, so the motion is actually coming from Councillor Garrell and seconded by Councillor Kelman, that staff be directed to send a letter to Member of Parliament for Kingston and the Islands, Mark Garrettson, regarding the state of the LaSalle Causeway, and that letter be circulated to the City of Kingston. So, Mr. Deputy Mayor Fody, if you want to speak to this.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. I believe it was last Thursday, I had a news feed that corrected the requirement to move this forward. The City of Kingston, with their MP, have taken care of the fear that I had that boats wouldn't be able to travel through this, and that is now not the case. I'm assuming they've heard likewise from water residents and tourism and businesses. But long and the short is, we can cancel this.
Okay, so the mover is Councillor Garrell, seconded by Councillor Kelman. Are you okay to have that withdrawn? Both are nodding in agreement. Withdrawn. It's a new process we haven't done very much of, so thank you. Okay, so I'm gonna get through the mayor's update and the announcements. We'll go through and then we'll go in camera to discuss the last few things and then go from there. So, new exciting news. If you haven't heard already, it's probably not a very well kept secret, but here it is. We are funding an experiential locum physician at the St. Lawrence District Medical Center starting today. So we look forward to having the physician in this area and hopefully learning to love the township like we are, and would consider staying on and being part of our community. So if you do cross paths with this individual, please make them feel welcome and do all you can. The Lansdowne Fair is going to be held July 18th to the 21st at the Lansdowne Fairgrounds across the road here from the township office. The opening ceremonies, Mini King and Queen, starts at 6 p.m. on the Thursday evening, and opening ceremonies are at 7. So hopefully we see you at the fair. It's always a great opportunity to support our local community and see friends and family from afar. And it's 160 years old as of this year. So Calling all community organizations, the Community Grants Program fall intake is now open. Applications are due Friday, September 6th. So if you or someone you know are part of a community organization that are looking for funds to do great things in our community, please look at our application process and fill it out and submit it prior to the 6th of September. Please note there are no meetings scheduled for the month of August except Committee of Adjustment the Tuesday, August 27th. Excuse me. However, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario is happening on the 17th, 18th, 19th, I believe, or 18th, 19th, 20th in Ottawa. It's moved back to Ottawa this year. We do have a couple of delegations we have requested on behalf of the municipality, one for infrastructure, the request for funds that we made for the water storage expansion that's required in Lansdowne, as well as one in regards to cemeteries and the costs associated for municipalities who are taking it on. And just as a little fun fact, Rideau Lakes has, I forget the number now, it's some 27 cemeteries they have to maintain, and it's costing them about $250,000 a year. So that's being borne by the taxpayers. So we're asking for a delegation to speak to the government in the regards to who's going to carry this cost in perpetuity, because poor planning on everybody else's part shouldn't become the municipality's burden. But however, here we are. There is a number of delegations that are happening from the county, all sorts of ministries regarding paramedic services, roads, long-term care facilities. The schedule is rammed packed. So I guess that would be it, other than Canada Day was awesome, and we've already said that once. But are there any other announcements for any other events that are happening, taking place? Go ahead.
One event that's coming up is the Thousand Islands Association down at the Playhouse on July 20th. They've just recently asked me to participate too, so I'll be there. And
The breakfast.
Hey,
The breakfast at
Yeah.
the Thousand Islands
Yeah,
Parade. So it's 9 a.m. on the 19th,
yep.
10th, 20th.
And then I had a question for our director of planning. Somebody asked me the Ivy Lee Road, whether there's a road allowance between it and Village Estates Road, and whether there's a talk about connecting them ever.
Is that a director of operations question or a planning question? Because I think if you're talking about joining the roads, I think it's the director of operations. You're in the hot seat, Mr. Holiday.
I can do it. There is a road allowance that runs between Ivy Lee Road and Village Estates. That is a closed road allowance from where we stop maintaining on Ivy Lee Road to where we stop maintaining on Village Estates. But there is a municipal right of way that does pass through there.
I have a follow-up question. Is it closed to public use, or can they still walk across from one road to the other?
So a road allowance, sorry, I don't mean to speak for Lindsay on this, but it's my understanding that you can walk on a municipal road allowance. You can't drive a vehicle or set up an encampment or any of those types of things, but you can use it for public access and walk.
Thank you.
Is that correct, Lindsay?
That fits with my understanding as well, yes.
Any other announcements of any other events that might be happening in July or August? Because we are not back here, well, potentially we've got a motion coming forward about another special meeting, but anyways. Okay, so we'll move forward with, oh, sorry. Lindsay, go ahead.
Sorry, you were mentioning the deadline for the fall intake of community grants, but I'd also like to mention that the deadline for the community improvement plan fall intake also falls on September 6th. So we're hoping to receive some more applications from property owners for that.
Okay, so if you have a property that falls within the CIP grant intake plan, please take a look and put your application in. Okay, so the next motion is a motion to adjourn to go in camera. And it's moved by Councillor Maybe, seconded by Deputy Mayor Fody, that council adjourn to go in camera in order to discuss an item that relates to in-camera session minutes, June 17th, 2024. Personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, human resource matter. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? It's carried. Okay. So we will